We're interrupting to take you live now to Cooktown in Queensland, where the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, is speaking.
It's an opportunity to understand this story from both the view from the shore and the view from the sea, and to understand what took place and to build understanding and learning. But importantly, it's a ceremony that actually brings Australians together. And I think it demonstrates how this is achieved around these important historic events, how Australians of all backgrounds can come together, listen to these stories, learn from these stories. And that is very true here as well in Cooktown at Reconciliation Rocks. And I want to thank those who are involved in that ceremony today, reminding us of what is possible and how communities in particular work together to keep these stories alive, to understand these stories and to convey the important lessons of these stories. That's what we take from history. That's what we have an opportunity to do in a few days' time. Not walk away from our history, but to understand it, to embrace it, to recognise the things that have happened both positively and otherwise. And it's so great here in Cooktown to see that spirit of reconciliation, that spirit of understanding, that spirit of appreciation and respect to be played out. And I really want to acknowledge the Warrnambool people here, and not only because they helped a bloke out when he turned up here almost 250 years ago and got him back on his ship and on his way, but the spirit in which they've kept that story alive amongst their own people, and to hear it relayed to me today by local Indigenous people was incredibly special, Warren, and I really thank you for that opportunity to come here and do that today. So next year is that 250.
This is where viewers on ABC TV leave us. You can continue watching over on the ABC News channel.
Here at Cooktown, and Warren and I have been having those conversations. So today we're announcing $5.5 million thereabouts to invest in a number of important projects that are happening here, upgrading and ensuring a monument down where we were just at Reconciliation Rocks. The further development of the botanical gardens are included in that. The Dreaming Trail, not just an important local story, but a great tourism experience for people who come to this part of the world. And the stories of that trail are just astonishing. And that will be supported by a broader national program, which Mitch is going to talk a bit more about. And that includes two parts of what is an important voyage. There's basically the reenactment of that voyage along the east coast of Australia, which is what I was referring to today when I was on radio this morning, and then the entire circumnavigation, which does two things. The reenactment as you go along the east coast, and as they call in at various ports along the way, is an opportunity to tell the story of that initial voyage. But it's also to take the story of reconciliation, I think, around the entire country as it goes well beyond where James Cook went all those years ago, and some 39 different places, and around $6.5 million is being invested through the National Maritime Museum to tell that story, and for Australians right around the country to engage with that story and to understand its real meaning. I believe it will be a voyage of bringing Australians together. That's why I'm so keen to support it, and I'm keen for it to be done very much in that spirit. Now, there are a range of other programs that I'll ask Mitchell to talk to as Minister, but finally I just want to say thank you again, Warren, for bringing me here. It's a very special place, and I'd encourage Australians from all around the country to come and check it out, and to listen to the Indigenous stories, to listen to the stories of this amazing town. It wasn't just known for what happened in the Endeavour River all those years ago, whether it's the history of the gold rush or any of those things. This is just one of those places, Australia, which tells a very special history, and to have taken a moment to remember those who fell in service of our country during the Great War. Coming out of this small town here in regional Australia is a great reminder of the great prices that have been paid for the wonderful country we are, but why it's so important for us all to come together, understand our stories, tell them with confidence, and appreciate their messages and their learnings. But Minister, Mitch, tell us a bit more about what's happening next year.
Thanks, BM. Well, the 250th anniversary is an opportunity for the nation to reflect on a legacy of exploration, of science and of reconciliation. Today with the PM and Warren, we're talking about an important part of that, which is the circumnavigation by the replica of Endeavour, which will start in Sydney in March 2020, go down to Hobart then back up the east coast and around Australia. This will provide an opportunity for the whole nation to be part of this time to reflect. And very importantly, the Cook Endeavour replica will be looking at things from the point of view of those on the ship and those on the shore at the time the Cook arrived here. There are many other elements of the $48 million that the Commonwealth is putting on behalf of the community to the Cook events. The National Library of Australia, the National Maritime Museum and also the National Museum will have a range of exhibitions. They will be combining together to have a digital platform for the nation to access, to follow the events and the story of Cook and the story of our Indigenous people. There's also important reconciliation components to what is being done. There will be a contribution to IATSIS to enable the repatriation of culturally significant objects from overseas. There'll also be a series of fellowships at the National Museum for Indigenous cultural sector workers to get new experiences so that they can be great at their craft. So there are a range of things that are being done, but it's both national and it's local, and the institutions that are supporting this endeavour will be working closely with local communities, and as the replica endeavour goes around the nation, there'll be a travelling exhibition which will be at those sites where the endeavour is stopping. So it's an opportunity for the whole nation to come together.
Thank you very much. Okay. And we've got from the National Trust. What do we
Good morning. Again, thank you very much, Prime Minister and Minister Peter Scott at Warren, for honouring us with your presence here today. The National Trust was fortunate enough to be able to step in and play a major part in the restoration of this convent building some 50 years ago. And a lot has moved on since those 50 years, and now we are looking at the future. We're looking at hoping to make sure that this is as much a museum which tells about the impact of James Cook as it is a museum that talks about the future of Cooktown. And we look forward to investing along with our community partners in this being a centre for the Barma, making sure that they have a voice, making sure that we're promoting, as the Prime Minister and the Minister were talking about, the many experiences that you can do here, that you can walk on country, that really taps into the mix of authentic cultural tourism, but also ecotourism. And we hope in the future the young people of Cooktown will have the opportunity to work here in the museum during the day, and maybe the following day take our visitors out on country and really experience firsthand what it's like to be in one of the most unspoilt and most beautiful parts of this country, if not the world. So we're very proud to be part of this, and we look forward to working in partnership with all levels of government. Thank you again.
Thank you. So this is great for Australia. It's great for tourism. You think about all the places the Endeavour replica will go around Australia, and it's great for Cooktown, it's great for Kurnell, it's great for a real opportunity next year, and so we're preparing for that. We're putting the resources in place. We would welcome support from the Queensland Government. In New South Wales, they have matched dollar for dollar what we've invested in New South Wales for that project. That hasn't yet occurred here in Queensland, and we would invite, and we'll be inviting again, the Queensland Government to participate in supporting whether it's places like Cooktown or 1770 or other places, and we look forward to receiving proposals like at 1770, where I know there's work being done as well there, and we look forward to considering those proposals when they come forward. So with that, why don't we take questions on those issues? We can move to other issues of the day. Happy to do that, and I'll have a bit to say before we do that. And let's start with questions on why we're here today.
Prime Minister, you've spoken a lot about working together for these celebrations. What do you have to say then to people who believe celebrating Captain Cook's arrival welcomes out feelings of discontent?
I think they're missing the point. You don't crab walk away from your history. You open yourself to it. You understand it. You embrace it. You come together and understand it, which is what we see here. What was so beautiful about the ceremony we had today is it told the story from both perspectives. And I thought it captured a spirit of reconciliation, which is what we want to go right across Australia. And that's what embracing your history and understanding your history and not crab walking away from it does. So we're not going to make any pretences. We're just going to be honest about it and have fair dinkum conversations about it. And I think that makes Australia stronger. I'm about making Australia stronger. And you're stronger when you can deal with your past and you can come together around your past and make it a platform to take you into the future.
Just a question on the economy.
Let's just stay on the local announcement and I'll move to other issues. I'm happy to do that.
Fred Derail, the little old man.
Yes.
He had a pretty touching sort of message to you about all being Australian. What did you say back to him?
Well, I basically just thanked him for keeping the stories alive. And I thanked him for the way in which the local community here has just been so much part of what has happened here. This has been a community process here that has been going for some 60 years, and it's done in partnership. I think it's a great model of the rest of the country, and that's what I thanked him for the spirit in which he engages.
Is it misplaced to celebrate Cook's voyage with a circumnavigation tour when he didn't actually circumnavigate Australia?
Well, as I explained in my opening remarks, yes, it does retrace the steps, obviously, when we go up the East Coast, which is what I was referring to this morning. But, you know, we're one large country, and it's important that the lessons and the stories that came out of that experience along the east coast of Australia is shared with the rest of the country. And that's what the circumnavigation, as the Minister, Mitch, has outlined. It's important we do take the story around the country. But at the same time, that process of sailing along the east coast, that will be quite special. I know it's going to be very special in my community, and on the 29th of April next year, that will be a very special time in our community, because for a long time, for those who probably haven't had as much engagement with this story as they have in my community or here in Cooktown, and they come in and they can make all sorts of criticisms of it, but they haven't been part of it yet. I'd invite them to open themselves up to this story, because it is. James Cook was quite a remarkable person for his time. Those who want to engage in judgments of things that happened 250 years ago and ignore the context of the period, I think do history and themselves a disservice. If you look at Cook in his own time, in his own context, he really was quite a legendary figure. He was a scientist above and beyond everything else, wanting to understand, hungry to know. Sure, he made some mistakes. Who doesn't? But he sought to understand and he sought to engage. And I think that's something worth recognising.
Is the Australian economy as it stands?
The man behind you has been sweating on this money for a long time. Is this ready to spend, or is it an election promise?
No, it's ready to spend. It's absolutely committed. It's already there. Peter, so you happy, mate?
Well done, Matt. Well done. Thank you very much.
No, it's great, and thanks for working with us, because this was a proposal that came out of the community. This is not something that bureaucrats in Canberra dreamt up and said, well, this is what Cooktown can have. No, the complete opposite. The complete opposite, just like in my own community, in terms of what we're doing down in Kurnell, that has come out of the community. And that's why we're backing it in. We're backing it in, and it's coming from the grassroots up. So I think some people want to move to other issues. So let me make a comment on those first. The Treasurer today has been, I think, sounding a very important warning about the global economy that we are entering as we go into this year. Now, I served as Treasurer for 3 years, and I know that the global economy that we're entering this year is going to be a lot tougher than the one we certainly entered this time last year. But we have seen these tough times as a government before. I mean, we have ensured continuous growth, and not just continuous growth, but growth at the top of the leaderboard of developed economies around the world in the face of the biggest shock to the Australian economy that arguably we've ever seen, other than the Great Depression, when we worked through the end of the mining investment boom that pulled $80 billion out of the Australian economy. And that particularly impacted places like Far North Queensland, North Queensland, Central Queensland, resources communities. This had a massive impact. And that's why I'm so pleased today that we can stand here in North Queensland, where in Warren's electorate the youth unemployment rate has fallen from 28% down to 15.6%. And so what Josh is saying today, I totally back him in. We are going into a tougher environment, and now more than ever, you must be able to know how to get the economic settings right to protect people's jobs, their livelihoods, to be able to invest in hospitals and schools. Now, Labor has not demonstrated those skills in the past, and their plans to put $200 billion of higher taxes on the Australian economy, that's what they're offering at the next election, that will throw a big wet blanket on the Australian economy at the time you can least afford it. The decisions that are made about the economy over the next couple of years and the decisions the Australian people will make at the next election about where they want their economy to go, that will determine the economy you will live in for the next decade. When Kevin Rudd was elected in 2007, we have spent the last 5 years cleaning up the mess that Labor made over their 6 years of government.
So as the economy stands today, is it able to withstand global downturns?
With the right economic management, as we have already demonstrated in government, Australian economy can continue to prosper. But with $200 billion of extra taxes on the Australian economy, and taxes that will undermine consumer confidence, like Labor's negative gearing changes, abolishing it as we know it, increasing capital gains tax, hitting self-funded and other retirees with their retirees tax. These taxes will slow the Australian economy. It will weaken the Australian economy. And that's why it's a very negative and dangerous plan, particularly as we are going into these difficult environments. And the other point I'd make about the economy is this. Down in Gladstone, Bill Shorten's down there talking about new plants. That's fine. But don't close down the existing one. The Boyne aluminium smelter will be history. History. If Labor's reckless targets on energy are implemented. A 45% emissions reduction target, which is what Labor has said they will not only introduce, but they will make it law, that will wipe out 1,000 jobs alone at the Boyne Island aluminium smelter. How do I know? I was there last year and the workers told me that themselves. So he can spend $3 million and he can say that he's going to loan money to some proposal, which is still in only formative stages. That is no compensation for wiping out 1,000 jobs in a viable, competitive, go-ahead industry that is already existing in Gladstone and providing livelihoods for so many families.
What do you make of news just sticking with Labor's announcement of money for hydrogen research? Do you back the idea, and would your party have anything to say on the issue?
Well, I'm fine with the issue of the hydrogen research. That's not the issue. And the truth is, there's only $3 million worth of new money. They cannot direct the CFC as to where they loan money. It's an independent organisation. So I think to go along and play that three-card trick with the people of Gladstone, I think is quite disingenuous, particularly when he's going to rip 1,000 jobs out of the Boyne aluminium smelter and undermine the livelihoods of so many Australians. So I don't have any problem with the project, but you don't have to choose between the two. You don't have to shut the industries like the aluminium industry, whether it's at Boyne aluminium smelter or it's down in Victoria. You don't have to do that. And that's why we think his plan is a reckless plan for our economy.
What do you make of news that Malcolm Turnbull's former infrastructure advisor Alice Thompson will run as an independent against Tony Abbott?
It's a free country.
Did you instruct members of the New South Wales Liberal Executive to vote for Warren Mundine in pre-selection over Grant Shultz?
Well, when I have more to say about our candidate in Gilmore, I will say it then.
Do you support Warren Mundine?
I think Warren Mundine's a top bloke. Edgy knows Warren Mundine really well, don't you, mate?
I think he's a great bloke. And a great name too, by the way.
I think Warren Mundine's got a lot to offer, and he's already been offering quite a bit. And been a friend of Warren for some time. I think he's a great bloke.
Would you want another woman in the seat for Gilmore?
Sorry, I can't hear you. There's three at once.
How much want another woman in the seat for Gilmore?
Sorry, I can't hear you. There's three at once.
How much want another woman?
Now there's two at once.
Would you want another woman in the seat of Gilmore?
Look, Anne Sudmalis has done a great job, and I want to see more female candidates, and that's why I'm pleased to see the great strong field that's already emerging for where Kelly O'Dwyer is not going to contest the next election. I'm absolutely confident we're going to see another great female candidate come out there. Remembering the last person to actually enter our parliament, I think it was here in Queensland, was Amanda Stoker. And she's fantastic. And so I want to see more Amanda Stokers. I want to see more of these great young women and women with life's experience coming into our parliament. And I'm going to be working hard as the leader of the Liberal Party to achieve that in the future. As we go into this election, those processes were largely set, pretty much completed. There's some more candidates, particularly in the seats that will be hotly contested and existing seats. But it's certainly my intention to ensure that that we have the plans in place with me as Liberal leader to ensure we have even greater...
James Cook was alive today, who would he be voting for?
There's only one man, the member for Cook.
Exactly, the member for Cook. There you go. I think that's well put, Warren. Look, I admire what... This is why I think being here is so important to me in Warren. You know, I love Australia's history. I love all of Australia's history. You know, in my maiden speech I gave in the Parliament, I talked about Cook. I talked about the importance of this 250th anniversary. So, you know, I've had a long-held view about this. I think it is so important for the reconciliation journey of this country to get our heads around this and to end this process of having a divisive view of our history. We just need to come around it, understand it, get together on it, just like you've seen here in Cooktown. I want to thank the people of Cooktown, the Indigenous people, the community who are here, who are telling this story honestly and in a way that I think speaks volumes to other Australians.
Back to the election, sorry, how much of a threat are independents this election?
Well, that independents turn up at every election, but what I know is they always promise a lot and can never really deliver at the end of the day. You want a strong economy? That's what I want, because I want to fund lung cancer medicines like I announced on the weekend. I want to fund the $60 million, which we are, for the Cairns Hospital. I want to ensure, you know, that we can continue to support our school education right around the country, which we're funding at record levels. We can fund all the essential services Australians rely on without hitting them with higher taxes, because we know how to run a strong economy and bring the budget into surplus, which will be done for the first time in April of this year, before the next election, and Australians will be able to see very clearly which party, which leader knows how to manage money and has a clear direction as to how we're going to keep our economy strong, to keep Australians in their jobs, to keep services and support going into our hospitals and our schools. That's why we believe in a strong economy, because it keeps Australians together and strong and having the services that they need. So I want to thank everyone, and particularly Peter, thanks for having us here in your neck of the woods. I'm looking forward to the rest of the day, Warren, and I want to thank particularly the National Trust here for the work that you're doing and telling the stories in this wonderful place. And I encourage all Australians who may be watching this or hearing this in some way or shape or form, get yourself to Cooktown. Get yourself here. Do yourself a favour.
Our friends in Canberra also want to know if you're in Queensland because you're worried you'll lose marginal seats, including Dixon.
They worry too much in Canberra. They should stop worrying. Thank you.
Can I just say, when Scott Morrison became Prime Minister, the first place he visited after being elected was Cairns. And we sat down and we had dinner on the waterfront.
We did, yeah.
And he says to me, Enchi, he said, something on my bucket list, I've got to go. Will you take me to Cooktown? And I said, have I got a deal for you? Of course I'll take you to Cooktown, but I've got Peter Scott's shopping list in my back pocket.
He did.
And you need to tick that off.
And we've delivered.
Then I'll take you up here. And
one last fun fact on Captain Cook, my staff will... A little known fact, but if you look inside and you look at the quote from James Cook, this is fair to know. I don't think you believe me about this. Tony Horowitz wrote a book called Into the Blue, and he retraced a lot of Cook's voyages, and he told the story of the contemporary islands and the places that Cook visited, and he was here in Cooktown at the pub. And in that book he opens it up by saying that actually James Cook was the inspiration for James T. Kirk in Star Trek. And it's fitting, if you look at the words that are said by Cook, you can see going where no one's gone before, all of those sort of things. So that's what... There are many things to commemorate about James Cook, but he was an enlightened individual at a time that needed a bit of light, and I think a lot of his light and the experiences he had with the local Indigenous people here in Cooktown can shed a lot of light on how we can bring Australians together today.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
And about the $6.7 million funding of a trip by replica of the Endeavour, Captain Cook's famous ship, of course. The vessel will circumnavigate Australia as part of celebrations marking the 250-year anniversary since the explorer's arrival here. That is the latest from Queensland.